So, hello everybody. So, thanks to the speakers and to be on the panel today. We have a really great lineup here today. So, I think let's start by introducing ourselves. So, I think we'll start from Igor to introduce yourself.
My name is Igor. I'm CEO of Credits Blockchain. It's a decentralized, distributed blockchain platform with smart contracts. We incorporated in Singapore. We have an office in Moscow, in London, and we are developing fast blockchain for fast transactional model of usage future.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eugene. I'm co-founder and CTO of Chainstack. Chainstack is building a managed blockchain service for businesses. So what we do, we take open source blockchain protocols and we help companies to deploy them and to manage them, to build consortiums, to invite new members, to revoke members, to manage the off-chain governance and all this boring stuff on the blockchain that nobody wants to solve. So we are on it.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Smith. I'm the Global Vice President of Business Development at Civic, and we are very focused on providing individuals and enterprises with a digital identity solution to work with validation companies to validate a government-issued ID and or protect us as consumers on a consent basis to share our PII or personal identifiable information with those who we choose to.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nehha Wadhwa. I'm the founder of this company called Pink Table, and through this, I consult companies in the new economy using distributed ledger tech to build their communities through outreach. I also run a podcast for deep thinkers who are looking to use the technology beyond cryptocurrency, which is using maybe a system to create a reputational currency. So anything beyond tokens, that's what I consult with.
Hi, everyone. My name is Babu, Munagala, founder CEO of Zebi. We do various types of big data, protecting on blockchain, land registry, education, our visitor information. We have live implementations in 2 state governments and about 700 hotels.
Okay, thank you a lot for introducing yourselves. I'll introduce myself as well. So my name is Harpreet Singh Maan, software developer turned entrepreneur. So I used to be developing in blockchain for the past 4 years. Started from Bitcoin to Ethereum, then moving on to enterprise solutions, Hyperledger. And then I noticed there's a big demand in the space towards development, but there's no developers. And there was a huge problem in the space, so we decided to move towards a servicing company where we support onto use case developments. Then we develop more developers in a way. We also do trainings, we do developers trainings, and we also do a lot of initiatives like Dapathon. We go out and train people on, for free on how to develop and write codes and build apps and give up some free money to actually build your use cases. And then we have everything from meetups on developers and try to do university and government collaboration to bring policy changes, to bring more academia, research documents in the space. So having that said, so I'm usually on the other side of the panel. I'm usually the person who get asked questions. So this time it's my first time asking the questions. So bear with me here. So a lot of people usually ask, hey, is it even possible that you can have a blockchain without cryptocurrency? Because being in the space where you provide a service, everybody said, hey, I don't want the token, but I'm more attracted to the blockchain technology. Is that even possible?
I think, as I said on my speech, half of use cases is a use case and solution which is working without cryptocurrency. And for example, Hyperledger or all private blockchains, they work without cryptocurrency. And blockchain in these solutions work as a distributed or decentralized storing system, which divided with specific model for different companies, for different people. And due to that might be created new services, new global services for global economy, which distributed globally on top of the world, globally.
I would give a very short answer. I think that for blockchain, cryptocurrency is required because it requires monetary incentives, but for technology like distributed ledger, monetary incentives are not always required, so we don't need cryptocurrency. So I like to split this to two kind of buckets. So one is blockchain, and I personally trust that monetary incentives is a particular feature of blockchain which cannot be taken out. And if you don't want to use cryptocurrency, you can use distributed ledger technology, which is perfect for multitude of other use cases which are not related to currencies when you don't need a monetary incentive.
Yeah, I would agree. I think they're not exclusive. I don't believe blockchain and crypto are together, right? So if you look at the Bitcoin white paper, for example, it doesn't necessarily need to live together. I do think that there are instances where a token is needed and dependent upon the type of token. So for example, Civic is defined as a utility token to essentially enable a transaction in that record to put onto the blockchain, where there is security tokens, which is extremely different, which I'm sure everyone in the room is familiar with. So I think they're not exclusive, and I think that you can have applications and implementations of non-tokenized blockchain use cases, and then there are instances where you may need to use a token.
I agree. So essentially, I would say is, what is it that you're using the technology for? If you're offering a service or a product, for instance, storage today is a product. Today, centralized organizations like Facebook, their biggest cost is storage cost. But if you kind of distribute that in a space where you provide storage across, say, all computers, that all of us are using storage and computing power, you are offering something, as a result of which you will need a reward for what you're offering. And that reward would be a digital reward, which would be a cryptocurrency. But the use of the technology for creating more use cases in terms of maybe value, intangible value, like if, for instance, while providing the service, you were really good in terms of you showed up on time, you delivered properly, you'd earn a certain reputation. That reputation will assure you a larger product or a larger customer base going forward. This technology has the ability to create that form of currency, which is not tangible, but can still attract value. And that is sort of the disruptive use of this technology, beyond just tokenized currency into intangible value. That is not present in our system today, and that is the value that this technology can sort of start opening up to.
Yeah. I guess the two questions I would frame that as, right? So one, can you build applications? Can you disrupt the current business processes, current centralized institutions without needing cryptocurrency? I think, Chris, you were talking about, using applications that may not really need a crypto token, but maybe a utility token or a different type of token. That's one way to do it. It's possible. And another question is really, can we define a blockchain, a decentralized system, without a token at all? I mean, we tried to do it, for our own Zebi public blockchain design, and we felt token is really essential. It doesn't have to be a cryptocurrency, but a token that enforces certain rules on the blockchain to make it completely decentralized, it's really required. And we want to call it as a blockchain token, not as a cryptocurrency. But there are different flavors to do it, but a token is really needed for the blockchain to really be what it is, decentralized, not really in the control of any single entity.
So we can see some mixed opinions over here. So looking towards here, when coming up with cryptocurrency, it gives up a good incentive for people to adopt it faster, for general public to adopt it faster. So Bitcoin became a successful blockchain project in a way because everybody had incentive to mine the particular software. But when moving out away from these incentive systems, it kind of, what will drive the adoption? I did hear that Nehha did mention about the value that the technology brings, the value proposition of the technology. So can this value, or what sort of values, propositions that current use cases or current blockchain use cases have that can be adopted well? Any of the use cases that you believe will be adopted well in the current blockchain technologies? Yeah.
I think the easiest, I think, is stablecoin. It is very easy to realize, and it has very wide potential of usage.
Okay.
So if we get away from cryptocurrencies, I think there are a lot of interesting use cases that, for instance, enterprises can leverage. For instance, if you do reconciliation between multiple companies, even in the same holding company or between different companies in one industry. It's much more efficient using a distributed ledger technology than it's done now with XLS files and CSV files and sending them via email and so on. So this is very simple and basic example, and if you think about companies like Big Four companies, they are doing a lot of this manual reconciliation for their own customers who spend a lot of money on that. So this is one simple example where distributed ledger as a technology can help companies to be more efficient. And in general, I'm a strong believer of decentralizing slowly and decentralizing gradually. So I don't think that the enterprises will be disrupted by blockchain or distributed ledger startups, and they will kind of disappear because they themselves bring a lot of value. So I think that a certain process will be decentralized from the beginning, and then it will move further and further. And maybe some processes don't need to be decentralized, and that's fine. So I think that some of the examples are reconciliation of information when companies work together in some supply chain, in logistic process as well, is very valuable. And in general, automation using distributed ledger, I think it's a way to go.
I would agree with both of you, but I also think that it's going to take the average person walking down the street to understand how they can use a token or a cryptocurrency to adopt it. So from a civic perspective, if you start to tie identity to something like payment, and you partner with someone like, say, Singtel here locally, where you can accept payment at every 7-Eleven here in Singapore or local restaurants, I think that starts to make the notion of blockchain go away. The previous panel, it doesn't really matter that it's run on the blockchain. Most people don't know what a server is or a database. So I think that once you can start to be able to provide solutions that tie the common person walking down the street versus us in here that are early adopters and believing in where the blockchain and crypto space is going to go is really where a lot of the use cases will come in, and we'll just, like we do today with credit cards, we won't even think about how we're paying or how we're using digital money.
I agree. I think ease of adoption would be the key. So for instance, I want to give the example of Airbnb. Airbnb made it really easy. If you have an asset, which is your home, and you want to earn some money with that asset, go ahead, rent it, and you make some money out of it. So the way to engage with the sharing economy became easy, and hence it kind of scaled up the way it did. If something as simple as, and I'm referring to Holochain because I really like what they're doing. If we have computers and we can rent our existing computers without any specific addition, it's an asset that we have, and we start lending it out for storage and computing power to sort of start earning cryptocurrency, that's one use case that I can think of. And anything else that sort of makes engagement easier, that is where I feel, and agile, which is where scalability will kind of come in. So anything that you have, if you want to start engaging with it just from level 1, and then also in terms of if your applications are aligned in terms of use case, if your applications are aligned with what you already do. So for instance, if a Twitter were to go on a shared economy and you sort of start earning tangible reputation for the number of followers you have and the number of tweets you make, anything that we already do, if it kind of shifts and it becomes easy, that's where I see the use cases developing.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with all of the panel members. They have different kind of aspects of the same point. But I want to share another viewpoint. There are a lot of companies, especially banks and institutions, that are using Hyperledger, for example. There's no token. There's no cryptocurrency at all. Yes. So it may not be completely decentralized. It may not be as as neutral as Bitcoin could be. But because Bitcoin has shown the way that things can be done in a significantly different way, private companies, especially governments and centralized institutions, they're more comfortable with private blockchains, Hyperledger, for example, right? So no token, no cryptocurrency at all, but that's still much, much better than the current centralized system, right? So in that sense, it's a transition.
So from all the discussion earlier, I can see the key is trust, collaboration, and identity. So moving on that, since you touched on enterprises and how enterprises are willing to adopt this technology, but how ready are they? Are enterprise really doing any sort of POCs or are they exploring the space in the first place? And how ready is the enterprise technologies to actually kind of assist the enterprises to adopt blockchain?
Some cases, some cases they're ready to use. Of course, crypto cases, it's quite disrupted cases, and it's very difficult to implement. They quite fast. And if we're talking about DLT or private blockchains, it's possible to implement. Like new technology, it has some difficulties, but in general, it's it's quite possible. It's quite interesting for companies if you prove the positives and they are ready to implement.
Okay.
So there are quite a lot of studies online that can be found on this already, because it's been in enterprise world for probably 2 years, roughly. So there are a lot of studies from quite reputative agencies and research companies that actually summarize that there are a lot of POCs for blockchain, and 90% of them are failing. And the reason of their failing are various. So starting from organizational, how to convince other participants in the consortium to join a consortium. To economical, how to calculate ROI on your blockchain implementation compared to what you already have. Or they can be also technological, of course, how to implement this hyperledger technology that nobody knows how to work with, and which is essentially quite terrible now to work with if you are non-DLT person at all, and you don't know all this like basic principles and so on. So there are a number of challenges, but I believe that companies now, they are looking at the blockchain or DLT technologies at less marketing standpoint, because previously they tried to implement blockchain just because it's cool, and they can implement blockchain and put it to a press release, and then this press release will be distributed over like thousands of websites, and they will gain some popularity. In reality now, I think with this kind of market that we're having, more and more companies, they're trying to look at the DLT only if they really want to look at the DLT and they want to understand how they can leverage it.
I'll give you two very simple examples that we're working on at Civic. So number one, we've recently partnered with Telefonica, which is one of the largest telcos in the world. They have over 300 million subscribers on a monthly basis. One of their big challenges is they want to be able to provide digital identities to their consumers and tie that to payments. So I think when you start to look at how telcos can introduce proof of concepts and making sure that the blockchain technology can scale, that's one of the biggest challenges in terms of the speed of transactions that we're currently seeing today. The long view of it is everyone should have a digital identity, and Telefonica, for example, is looking at that from payments to being able to prove who you are when you're logging into their website. Another really simple example is we have a partnership with Anheuser-Busch, and we created the first blockchain-based zero-knowledge proof vending machine at Consensus in New York City this past May. And the idea was that once you validated your government-issued ID through the Civic app, you walked up to the vending machine, you scanned a dynamic QR code. The vending machine software essentially recognized that I was 21 or over. It didn't count how many beers I had personally because of the zero-knowledge proof. But the idea was that you can identify yourself through a vending machine now using blockchain, but no one really knew it, right? So I think there's a lot of use cases out there, from doing KYC for an ICO to NASA building different blockchain initiatives around identity or whatever it might be. So I think that there's a lot of enterprises trying to find their niche on how they want to be able to use the technology.
So two things. One, any enterprise that is truly struggling with KYC and management of their clientele, that I see definitely as ready to sort of put onto the blockchain. But in terms of use cases beyond KYC, supply chain is definitely something that could go on the blockchain. It makes things efficient, it makes it trackable. Issue is only, like I said, it's very inefficient because of the level of consensus that's required. So whether the blockchain or DLT is just a matter of, hey, let's wait and watch. Apart from that, I'd say newer companies which have less to sort of migrate, but have great ideas and they know how to use this technology, those would be definitely the earlier adopters. especially of DLT, because they can do a lot more with it. They can experiment a lot with it. So more than large enterprises moving, like for instance, I somehow don't see Facebook being the first or one of the earlier adopters. I see it being one of the later adopters of this tech because they have a lot at stake in case something goes wrong, whether they can even continue being or doing what they're doing for a longer time. So I think they'd probably play the wait and watch game. But definitely people who see a large gap in efficiency, like the telcos, for sure they would be ready to adopt.
So let me respond to Harpreet's question of, he's asking, are the governments and enterprises really ready, right? So there are two aspects, ready and then willingness, right? Whether they're really willing, whether they want to do it, right? So I'll tell you an example of what I've seen in one of the state governments in India. So this is the capital of, the state. I won't give you the name. So we went into these government offices. They're like big piles of paper, big piles on the table, just sitting. I guess they need to either review or read or approve or, it just shows there's a lot of paper. So, that particular state, and it's true for a lot of places in India, it's not even digital.
Yes.
Right, so the information is still on the paper. So first we have to get digital, and then you can protect the digital information, right? So although it seems like a bad kind of negative or kind of a problematic thing, but there is a great opportunity. So we can leapfrog, just like India leapfrog directly from directly to mobile phones without having to install landlines at all. And similar opportunity is there for a lot of developing countries like India.
Okay, so as you just said that earlier. So I can definitely see there's a big discussion towards digital identities. And to the next industrial revolution, definitely one thing we have not yet settled on is identities. And how do we govern, maintain, and keep these identities secure and making sure people's data is still private. So I think I'll direct this question directly to Chris, since you're working on digital identities, on how are you, how Civic is protecting this data, and how is it making sure the data remains private and while being on a blockchain. And maybe Babu, you can comment on this since you spoke about it earlier.
Yeah, I think there's going to be multiple options in identity, right? There's going to be a lot. Civic is not going to be the end-all, be-all. I think having interoperability between blockchains is really going to help not only enterprises but consumers. One of the things that we're really focused on is multi-factor authentication, so that you can use and prove who you are when you're logging into a website. Whether that's through facial recognition, biometrics. And what we do is we encrypt and store everything in our app, and it lives on your device. So instead of living in a centralized database like Equifax, and having one breach can affect over 140 million people, you have to be really good to hack my phone. And if you hack my phone, Eugene's not going to be impacted. So that's where the power of the blockchain comes in, and the decentral nature of everything. And I do believe that having an identity layer on top of a blockchain or multiple blockchains from an interoperability perspective is where we're going in the next 12 to 18 months. And so we're building identity solutions for consumers that they can leverage by themselves, and enterprises can adopt to provide to their consumers.
Sorry to disturb the panelists. We do have the final 60 seconds because we are pushing the envelope. So yeah, if you guys can wrap it up, that would be great. Thank you.
So I'll say that let's just, is there any question from the audience? I'd like to keep the discussion going, and it's a really interesting discussion. But since we're running out of time, I'll say that we'll call it off. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.